Hello, welcome to Jacob Books Corner. I am Jacob, and today we are in a beautiful book corner talking about the 17 books that I read in November. This is a quick stats page. I'll just throw it up on the screen in case anybody's curious of the breakdowns of any of the information. This comes directly from Storygraph in case you want to do the same for your reading every month. It's like a Spotify Wrapped just for you. That being said, we have a bunch of books to talk about. If you see me looking down at a random piece of paper, it's because I am looking down at a random piece of paper, as there's a handful of books I don't own and they're going to be going up on the screen. We're actually doing this in a different way. I have quite a bit of books that I own, which is pretty cool. We're going to try to keep this becoming a normal thing. I'm going to start putting books on hold at the library so I can get the copies if I read them or whatever. We can start holding things up, as I think the editing process will get a bit more smoother for me. But that wasn't in the mindset when I was reading for November like it is for December. That being said, I'm going to go through the list of books that I have here I don't physically own that are going to be coming up on the screen, and then we can go through the books I do own and talk all about them. Alright, the first one to talk about is American Rapture by C.J. Leede, one of my most anticipated books of the year. I don't think this was a 5-star prediction. I think I did pull it from being a 5-star prediction. So I gave it a 4, and I would constantly recommend it. It has some very interesting taboo relationships. It deals with a woman, a girl. She's 16 going on 17, growing up in a very religiously Catholic household. No identity to sex, no identity to anything. A very poignant LGBT story going on in the side ground, which I thought was beautiful and really well handled, and I just adored it. I liked how all that stuff played out. The world goes down into a rapture where lust takes over everybody and they turn rabidly violent towards anything to do with sex. If you have sex, if you're exposed to sex, you become a different person, a very evil and mean person. And so you're seeing this book has a lot of assault scenes. Also, just want to put it out there, there is something to do with an animal inside this novel, is all I will say. I'm not going to say what the animal is or anything, but if you are sensitive to animal cruelty, animal violence, even if it's not directly done by the person, but in any way, shape, or form, I would be hesitant to recommend this book. But I give it a 4. If you're interested in C.J. Leede, I actually recommend Mayfly more, but Mayfly has its own taste. So if you don't think you're going to enjoy this, maybe you'll enjoy this. To be fair, up until the very end, I had a really hard time realizing it was the same author. I'm excited for her, whatever her next novel is going to be, but it does make me a bit nervous. Then I read Black Tide. Black Tide was a weird one. I grabbed it randomly. I was gonna read all these books for Halloween, and it happened to be on my list, and I was like, okay, we'll check it out. Black Tide is about these two people, and they end up so our main character is a house sitter down on her luck, and she goes and she's dog sits this really rich family. They're going on vacation, and her next door neighbor is a screenwriter. I don't know why that's a common trend this month, but it is. Several of the characters I read were screenwriters, and they end up experiencing an alien anomaly is really all I gotta say for it. And it's a very action-packed, intense thrill ride to the very end, which is, if that's really your thing, I think you'll truly love this. I wanted a bit more, but also a little less. I don't know how to describe it. I give it a 3.75. I read Middle of the Night by Riley Sagar. This is for a Riley Sagar video that's coming in the future. Due to this reason, I'm not actually going to disclose my rating of Middle of the Night, but I will say, if you're looking for a Riley Sagar to read, maybe not turn to this one. This is about a boy when he's younger. His best friend is kidnapped from the tent that he is staying with, that they're sleeping in. Best friend is kidnapped. He is not. So it's this whole thing. Then, many years later, he's trying to solve this crime as one typically does. I was disappointed for a lot of reasons, and eventually I will explain all of those reasons too. Just not yet. It is coming though. Then I read Grimoire Kings. I was really in the mood for a fantasy novel. I wanted something quick and fast, which is exactly what this is. I love Portal Fantasy, which is what this is. I also love gay literature, which is what this kind of is. Vague in its best Samfront. We have 3 friends. One is dying. One is a troublemaker who has a really bad life. And then one is stays kid's going to be valedictorian, whole 9 yards. They're graduating, and during their final summer, the one that's dying says, I am no longer doing this. I'm going to die, and in a few months I will pass on, but please give me the best summer of my life. And the friend was like, I got you. And they end up going into a bookstore, stealing a book, and getting transferred into this fan school world. The main character became so irritable by the end that I was just why are we following him? I would much prefer to be following any other character on here, but why him? I landed on a 3.25 for that exact reason. One of the first, I think, of 2 DNFs this month is The Handyman Method, which is by 2 authors, Nick Cutter and somebody else, and it was pitched like Amityville Horror, and I don't know why I thought Annabelle horror would work in a book. It doesn't. I'm sure the actual murder account, if I read that shit, maybe it would be interesting. This shit was not. Really is about a man, and there's a reason why it's called the Handyman Method, who they end up buying a house, and he gets addicted to this hole, trying to plaster up this hole. And then he gets a little stir crazy. I didn't make it very far. I think I made it like 30% into it. And weird stuff was happening. And it was getting a little gross and things. Like the dude had like a paper cut and it was like really graphic or whatever. The moral of the story with like this one is that I was just bored. I was just like, I wasn't feeling the vibe. I wasn't feeling the writing. I wasn't feeling the characters. I wasn't intrigued enough to want to like really desperately know what happens. And so like, I just found myself wanting to pull further and further back from it. And I was like, I'm trying to dig like by my fingers out of a reading slump. I don't need something to push me deeper into it. And this was not helping, okay? So we DNF'd that bitch. Then, as you guys have seen in the last video, I read 9 books in 48 hours to end my November, and 3 of those, which I've already talked about in that previous video, which I'll mention here. One of them is downstairs, I don't feel like going and getting, and then 2 of them are with a friend. So we're just going to talk about all 3 of them. So we have Call the System. This is a poetry collection about a cat rebellion. It's exactly what it sounds like. If it's any interest to you, I recommend. I gave it a 3.5. We have Witchlight, which is a bit different. This is I don't even know what to describe it as. It's a graphic novel, kind of gay, little sapphic, and set in a world where there's knights and there's witches. Our main character wants to be a knight, but she can't be a knight because she's a girl, and she's going on this journey with a witch, and the witches have like this candle above them. This witch's power was separated into 2, and so they're going across this land to find her second half, and it follows their story. I gave it a 3.75 and would broadly recommend. And then I read Other Boys. Other Boys is a memoir biography told through graphic novel format about a boy, or about a man's childhood when he was younger, going into a new school at 7th grade when he's figuring out that he's gay. It's also flipping backwards in time and explaining people that supported and people who didn't. This felt a little like a personal attack to me. It's the first of 2 gay novels we're going to talk about, and that felt a little personally attacky, and so I gave it 4.25. I think there's a point in time in life where it could have been a 5, and because it is a graphic novel memoir, I read a few of these in the past, I do feel a little bit more detached from being like, no, it's a memoir, so it's either a 5 or nothing. There's something about being a graphic novel that makes it feel more like a story than just like a retelling of someone's life. We landed on a 4.25. Would obviously recommend. Now, moving over into the books I physically can go through, so let's go ahead and talk about them. The first one being Chuck Tingle's Bury Your Gaze. This one follows our screenwriter. He is working for this company. He's pretty high up in this, he's pretty liked in this company as a screenwriter. He has a TV show that's ending its 2nd season, already got renewed for a 3rd, and he is told he needs to bury his gaze by killing off his 2 leads. They can fall in love, whole 9 yards for sure, but you have to murder them. Well, on the opposite side here is that we also have a movie that's been nominated for an Oscar with an actor that is used through AI doubling, totally brought to life by computer, and is being nominated for an Oscar. The performance is being nominated. Both these storylines do tie in together in this weird futuristic sci-fi horror novel about facing your demons and coming out of the closet. I mean, I think it should live up to the concept. I don't think it does. It also does not live up to this cover. This cover is immaculate, and it's not. I gave it a 4. Don't get me wrong. What did I give it? Was it a 4.25? A 4.25. So I really did like it. But I feel like the final act just like really loses itself and it gets very disjointed in a weird, gory way. I don't know how to describe it to you, but I didn't like it. Then I tried Rotten Ruin, Jonathan Malbury, and to be honest with you, I just really wanted to read Patient Zero, so this is bad to me. I got, I don't know, somewhere in here. Like, I got pretty far into it, okay? A decent chunk of the way through to realize that it just wasn't for me, and I gave it a DNF because I wasn't liking it. I do plan on picking up this author. I just plan on picking up his adult stuff instead of his YA stuff. Then we have City on Fire by Cassandra Clare. This is the 6th and final book in the Mortal Instruments series, the end of the 2nd to last series I need to read for this time when I read, which is crazy. Now, my question for you guys is, I have Shadowhunters is my favorite series of all time, and I have made it very clear on this channel. I've documented a lot of my experiences and will continue to document a lot of my experiences. The next Shadowhunter video will be coming out once I'm done with this entire timeline reread, which will be ranking. I'm planning on doing 2 ranking videos, one of all the characters and one of all the books, because like, how could I not at this point? And novellas, everything's gonna be included is the plan. It's gonna be those are gonna be 2 really long videos, but I'm really excited about both of them. Would you like a conversation about reading it in publication order and reading it in timeline order and the difference if you read them? Would that be of interest to you? Let me know in the comments. Is it more like a TikTok situation where I just make it as a TikTok and move on with life? But let me know in the comments if you have any reasoning to say. Saving Fire, once again, is book number 6, and it follows the exact events of book number 5. You're supposed to read these in tandem with Clockwork Prince and Princess and things, and I didn't do it this time, but I did do it the first time. There's some huge spoilers for that particular book inside this book. Or there's huge spoilers for this book inside that book. I can't remember the way you're supposed to read it. But either way, would recommend publication order if you're reading Shadowhunters for the first time. I've read Shadowhunter at least twice now, and I fucking adore this novel so much. There's so many good callbacks. There's so many little moments that build onto bigger moments. Also, like, there's a whole section at the end of the book describing different codexes, which I own. It's also describing different other books, which I own. We have callbacks to the last hours. There's just so many beautiful things that I love. Also, it's the introduction of my favorite family of all time. Like, I'm just super excited to be here. It was exactly what I needed and exactly what I wanted reading it as well. Then I read Time as a Mother by Ocean Vuong. The next set of books here I read in that video I just posted, so if you want to see my reaction to reading those, you can go over there. That being said, I gave this a 5. This is a reread. It was already a 5 beforehand, and I just solidified it more as a 5. This has to be one of my favorite poetry collections I've ever read. I love Ocean Vuong's writing so much, to the point where I'm interested in reading his fiction, but I'm not fully sold yet. This was his second poetry collection. I think I read his first. I don't think I liked it nearly as much. This is a conversation about grief and going through trauma that he physically couldn't go through until this grief happened of losing his mom. And it's beautifully written, and I would highly recommend. Then we have Fangirl Volume 2 by Rainbow Rowell. This is a manga adaptation of it and things. The best parts here are of Simon Snow. Hate to say it, but it's true. I did really enjoy a lot of the other aspects here as well. It's really rare that I really love stories that are talking about writing in writing. This is why I went Fangirl to begin with, and that's why I liked Fangirl now. We'll continue on. We'll read the last 2 volumes that are already out. Then I read Ready or Not, Ready or Not, which is about a group of friends who end up doing dares all summer. I thought it was just fine. I landed on a 3. I felt like it was pretty basic when it comes to like a middle, like a coming of age summer story. But hey, maybe it's for you. I don't know. I just didn't love it. It just wasn't directly for me. Speaking of Shadowhunters, I did read The Infernal Vices, book 2 in manga. Historically speaking, Clockwork Prince is probably my least favorite Shadowhunter book of all time. One of my least favorite Shadowhunter books. I have a few novellas that I would say are worse than this, but Clockwork Prince really divides on not knowing what's happening. And I knew what was happening the entire time. The first time I read it, I think I gave it like a 4. The second time I read it, I gave it like a 3. Now as a novella or as a manga type of situation, it's not a direct manga, but an anime style manga treatment, I'm giving it a 4 again, because there's moments in here that did work better drawn. It is what it is. Then we have 2 other books to talk about. So the next one would be We Are the Danger, which is about a girl who ends up going off and living in this like dorm room, and her dorm mate is a part of a band. She's going seeing her. The band ends up splitting up. They end up forming the band called We Are Danger, and it follows their escapades. It looks like it's the first of like a whole series. I do not plan on continuing onwards. Battle band stuff does not interest me, and none of the pairings also interest me. But it's cute. It was fun. It was a 3.5. And then lastly, we have Sea of Stars, which I personally wanted to love way more than this. It's about a dad and a son. The dad's a trucker in space, and something ends up happening where they end up being separated. So we're following 2 different storylines, both on a short clock because both their auctions like running out. The son is floating through space, exploring it, and the dad is trying to reach him in any way, shape, or form. And it was just okay to me. I could see where some people think this is like amazing and jaw-dropping, but for me personally, artwork is gorgeous. Wouldn't lie, but I landed on like a 3.25. I was just really bored through most of it, and I had a hard time reading it. It took me 8 times picking it up and putting it down before I finished it, and this is like 90 pages. There has to be something there. That being said, those are the books that I read during November. Let me know how you guys in November did, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Thanks for watching, and goodbye.